students, welcome to Time. In this video, we are going to be seeing the CUET UG 2024 papers English analysis. Now, to get a better understanding, let me first explain as to what the exam is all about. So the CUET UG is a national level entrance exam conducted for admissions to all the UG programs from all central universities. It's a national level entrance exam. So it is being conducted by the National Testing Agency and it is conducted in a hybrid mode. You can either choose to take a paper-based test on which you will be bubbling an OMR sheet, or you can take the computer-based test. Now, the dates for the UG exam for this year 2024 is between 15th May to 24th May. To get a better understanding of the exam overall, let us understand the exam pattern. You have three sections in this examination, with section 1 being on language, where you will be appearing for the English test that we will be talking about in this video. Now, in the English test, you have 40 questions to attempt out of 50 questions provided to you, and it is for 45 minutes each. Now, going to the second section, you will have the domain subject. Now, the domain subject is something that you wish to pursue your future degree education or undergraduate education in. You get to choose out of 29 various subjects as of the latest list of subjects that is updated by the CUET. Now here you get to choose a maximum of 6 subjects that you would wish to apply for, and based on that you will be marked and taken forward in the process. Now the third section is the general test. This general test is to be attempted, 50 out of 60 questions will be required to attempt, and it will be of a 60-minute duration. Let's move on to see what the testing areas will be for each of these sections. So in section 1 under language, you will be tested for reading comprehension based on different passages, and you'll also be tested on your literary and narrative aspects under the reading comprehension section. You will also be tested on your literary aptitude, your vocabulary, grammar, and your verbal ability overall. So this is what entails in the section 1. If you look at section 2, it will be the domain subject. Based on your class 12 board syllabus, you will be tested on the subjects that you select in this section. And if you look at the general test, in the general test there are a lot of aspects that are tested. You have general knowledge, you have current affairs, you have general mental ability, numerical and quantitative reasoning, different types of reasoning, arithmetic, algebra, whatever you have learnt up till grade 8 is what you will be tested basically on. So it is going to be a mix of all these subjects under the general test section. Now let's deep dive into the detailed analysis of the English paper. Now if you see, the duration of this test is for 45 minutes. The total number of questions that appear in this test are 50, out of which 40 is what you will be required to attempt. Now if you attempt more than 40 questions, only the first 40 questions will be considered as your attempt and the rest of them will not be considered. Moving on to the marking scheme, here you get plus 5 marks. So you're getting 5 marks for each correct answer, and you're penalized with minus 1 mark for each incorrect answer that you attempt. So let us run through the different question types from this paper. The first question type we will be discussing is the sentence formation. Now in sentence formation, it varied from easy to difficult by assessing the ability to construct coherent and grammatically correct sentences. So the reason it was easy to difficult, you had a certain question. You had some questions that were easy and some of them which were moderate and difficult too. So couple of them, on a total there were around 10 questions of sentence formation, out of which 8 were easy and 2 were moderate and difficult. Now moving on to the next question type, fill in the blanks. In fill in the blanks, you were tested on various aspects such as your verbs, your verb forms, phrasal verbs, prepositions, and your general vocabulary of the day-to-day words that you would use. This section also was easy to moderately difficult. A very well prepared person who is very good at English, easy to moderately difficult. So if you are a generally good student of the English language, this section would have kind of been moderate to difficult, not very difficult. If you are a good student of English and you know your words well, this section could have been easy to moderate for you. Now, moving on to the next question type, which is vocabulary. Now, under vocabulary, you had questions where you had to find the meanings of the words, find the synonyms or antonyms based. You also had some of the words that were given within a sentence and you had to find the synonym or the antonym of that particular word. This section was a little bit moderately challenging or difficult overall, because there were some words that were difficult and you wouldn't have seen in a daily usage as usual. But if you are good at your figuring out the root of the word and understanding what it could contextually mean, it would have been a moderate to difficult kind of a section for you to deal with. Now, moving on, you had idioms and phrasal verbs that were tested. This section was moderate difficult. There was mostly match the following type of questions, where there were 4 idioms given and the meanings given, or 4 fill in the blank kind of sentences were given and you had to match it with the right phrasal verb to fit into that particular blank. So this was the type of questions that you had under idioms and phrasal verbs. You also had one question that you could term as a closed test, but it was just a single sentence with 2 different blanks that had appropriate verbs that you had to fill in with. So this question too was a little moderate in difficulty, but if you're a good student in English, like I said earlier, this would have also been a question that was quite a good attempt for you. Now, let's move on to the reading comprehension type of questions. So in total you had 24 questions across 4 passages. So each passage had 6 questions for you to answer for. Now the questions range from specific detail. You had some, what would this phrase or this particular sentence mean. You had some questions that, asked you to identify which of the statements were true based on the passage from the following options. Then you had 1 or 2 inference or assumption and inner meaning kind of questions that appeared. You also had 2 to 3 vocabulary based questions where you had to based on the usage of the word in the passage, you were supposed to identify the meaning or a synonym of the given word, etc. You also had an assumption based questions in one of the passages, and there was one question for passage 2 that asked you to give the title of the passage. Now let's look at the different topics or categories that the passages ranged from. The first passage was on a daughter of a critic who was the granddaughter of the novelist Premchand. It was in a first person passage where she was talking about the difficulties and of managing expectations that she had from her father, or because she was the granddaughter of Premchand and etc. That was the first passage. The second passage was on free will and how opinions and how freely you are allowed to give your opinions in a so-called democratic society, and it was very social and politics related, that is what you could say. So on free will was the second passage topic. Now if you go to the third passage, it was about the history of chocolate. It is something very interesting that all the students must have really enjoyed, and overall the questions also were fairly easy for this particular passage, as they were mostly on the specific detail section, like if there was something related to, when was the first, like where do you find the different types of cocoa beans, and that would be Africa. And it was very straightforward type of questions. It was an also very interesting passage overall to go through. And to compete with the third passage, you also had the fourth passage that was on the history of coffee. Here this passage spoke about where coffee originated, what are the different types of coffee, what are the different blends that you find, and most of the questions for this passage too were on specific detail, or all in all true and false related questions. Quite doable if you would have selected these two passages and one or two questions from this and one or two questions from this. Your overall RC section would have been a cakewalk for you for this particular paper. So now that we understood the different question types in both RC and verbal ability, let's look at overall what the analysis says. So you can see that it was a mix of easy to moderate questions, and it provided a balance, a very balanced assessment of your English proficiency skills. Please keep in mind that this section is unavoidable. You have to carry good marks in this particular section, and it is a very important parameter when you are being selected by the universities that you're trying to apply to for your undergraduate program. With that said, all the best students. Let's hope for the best in your results. Thank you.